We already know that the brand new Kamado Joe Kettle Joe could tackle a brisket. In fact, it did amazing. But how about some pork side ribs, trimmed St. Louis style? Well, today, that's what we're gonna do using the SloRoller on the Kamado Joe Kettle Joe. Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and welcome to some St. Louis side ribs on the Kamado Joe Kettle Joe. Now, I was blown away at the quality of the brisket we got trying an overnight cook on the Kettle Joe. And sure, there was a lot of differences versus doing it on a Kamado Joe Classic or a Kamado Joe Big Joe, but nonetheless, it turned out an amazing result, and I can't wait to find out if it has some tricks up its sleeve that will handle some St. Louis pork side ribs just as well. So to get ready for this, what I went ahead and did is empty out any leftover charcoal that we had from our brisket. And I'm using 2 pieces of peach wood for smoke today. As always, I like to go ahead and drop those on the bottom grate, then cover it with some fresh charcoal. Today, I'm using some Kamado Joe Big Block for my fuel source. And then once I've got all that assembled together, just go ahead and empty that bottom ash drawer. This one is similar, a little bit different than the bigger models like the Classic and the Big Joe, but it does have a little handle. You can pull it out. And so after a few scoops, I was able to get all the leftover ash out of that 17-hour brisket cook where we had accumulated a fair bit of leftover ash. After that, I'd want to go ahead and start building some heat in our Kamado Joe Kettle Joe. And so I like to light a fire front center. I was curious in my brisket video if the fire direction would burn like it does in a normal Kamado towards the back, but as far as I could tell, it stayed pretty center. So that's the game plan for today. I want to go ahead and light the fire straight down in the middle of our charcoal basket. After that, I'm gonna install the SloRoller and leave everything else out, including our grids, so that we can go ahead and get our ribs ready and make a ghetto homemade drip tray. The Smokeware 12-inch drip tray that I use in my Classic or my Big Joe won't fit with the cooking grates on the Kettle Joe, and so just making one out of foil will make that much easier, and that'll give us a little bit of protection and help make sure the smoke that we're getting is good quality charcoal and wood burning smoke and not just pork fat falling down into our fire. So the method we're going to use for today's ribs is a hotter and faster cook. I found on the Kamado Joe I get the best result doing 2 hours of smoke, 1 hour in foil versus a 3-2-1 method. I've actually got a little bit of a head-to-head on that coming up so we can taste them side by side, but from experience in the past, this method has worked really good. So all we want to do is go ahead and get our ribs out of the package, pat them as dry as we can, and remove any silver skin membrane on the back of our ribs. These looked in pretty good shape, so I didn't need to do any extra trimming. And I also, without needing to trim any of those end bones, wanted to see if we could fit the entire rack of ribs on our Kettle Joe, whereas if I was cooking on my Kamado Joe Classic, I would have to shorten those up to be able to get them to fit on the 18-inch grid diameter. Hoping that the 22-inch diameter Kettle Joe allows us to fit these on no problem. So now with pork, like normal, I like to use a little bit of yellow mustard as my binder. Not needed, especially when we pull the rubs right out of the packaging. They're still moist. If we had dry brined to these, you'll definitely want the binder, but old habits die hard. So I just went ahead and added a thin layer of yellow mustard as our binder. For my rub, it's a homemade rub. It's just half and half salt and pepper to start. And that's really all you need. For some extra added flavor, I went and just mixed in a little bit of paprika, a little bit of cayenne. I had some jalapeno powder lying around, so I went ahead and added that as well with just a little bit of yellow mustard. I had some garlic, and I think that's everything I threw in for the rub today. Just mix that up really well and go ahead and coat both sides evenly. I like to coat the bottom side first, since as we're handling it, we don't want to rub off any of the presentation side finish. Flip them over and hit the presentation side, and we are ready to throw these on the brand new Kamado Joe Kettle Joe. Okay, so it is time to go ahead. Our grill is up to temperature. So the target temperature we're looking for is between 250, 270 degrees. It's right on 250 right now. So what we want to go ahead and do is drop in our homemade drip pan, drip tray out of foil on top of our SloRoller just to add a little bit of extra drip protection. We'll go ahead then install our 2 cooking grids, and then we're ready to drop on our ribs. So it was tight, but these absolutely fit no problem. And so I just want to take a minute to squish them a little bit together so that the bones are as straight as possible. We can manipulate them now before we start our cook, but how they're on now is how they'll finish later. And so to try and be able to get some nice slices between the bones, just take a minute to fiddle with our ribs before we close the dome and leave them for 2 hours. Now normally, on a Big Joe or the Classic Joe, I don't even bother to look in the 2 hours, but because this is a new grill with a different heat signature, I want to double check and make sure I'm not getting any burning. So at about 45 to 60 minutes out of our first 2 hours, I'll just go ahead and take a look and make sure everything is kosher. And if it's all good, we'll leave it for the remainder of our 2 hours. Other than that, if there's no surprises, I'll rejoin you in 2 hours when we get ready for our wrap foil method using some mayonnaise to keep our bones nice and moist, and go on to our final stage of cooking these St. Louis ribs on the Kettle Joe. All right, it's been exactly 2 hours and our ribs are looking amazing. So after about 90 minutes, I went ahead and just hit these with a little bit of spray and a water bottle just to help get any last bit of smoke to adhere to our meat, as well as prevent them from drying out. They don't look too bad. Just one tip at the very end, I think we got a little dark there, but everything else is looking really good. So after 2 hours, that's it for our time exposed to the smoke. We want to now go ahead and get these into some foil. So we're going to wrap them. We're going to have some apple cider vinegar as well as just some regular mayonnaise. And what we're going to do is we're going to place our ribs into the foil bone side up, and then put a little bit of mayonnaise on the back of the bones. You can melt some butter if you like. I just found mayonnaise is a little bit easier for the same benefit of helping melt some fat and soften the bottom of those bones that have been more exposed to the heat coming off of our SloRoller and our Kettle Joe than the top side. Then after we've got that, just drizzle in about a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar and wrap them tight. I double layered our foil just to make sure I don't get any bones poking through. And once they're nice and snug in that foil pouch, we're going to put them back on for 60 minutes. The ribs will be done at that point, but I want to get a little bit of barbecue sauce on them. You can do this one of two ways. You can take them off and sauce it and just let them tack up for about 5-10 minutes or so from the heat of the ribs, or you can give them 5-10 minutes back on your grill, which is what I think we're going to do today. Since it's so cold, I don't want to lose any of that extra heat. So I'll see you in 60 minutes when it's time to get these out of the pouch, back on the grill with a little bit of barbecue sauce, and then comes our favorite part, our taste test of our St. Louis pork side ribs cooked on the Kamado Joe Kettle Joe. All right, just like that, our 3 hours is up. So we've done 2 hours of smoke, an hour in the foil, and we're losing our daylight quickly, but that's okay, we're nearly done. So all we have to do now is sauce up our ribs. So what I'm gonna do is take advantage of them being bone side up. I'll go ahead and sauce the bottom. And for sauce today, I'm using a sample my butcher gave me, a local small business, Norfolk barbecue, and so love trying stuff from new local creators, and kind of makes me wish the farmer market was open because I always find new things like that. So doing a little taste test of that ahead of time, I think is going to go great with our ribs and the seasoning that we picked for our rub. And so then we'll flip them, sauce the other side, and give them another 10 minutes or so just to tack up with the heat of our barbecue before taking them inside, slicing them up, and I'll rejoin you for our taste test. All right, time for the best part of the night. It is our taste test time, and I can't wait to dig into the St. Louis side ribs that we cooked on our Kamado Joe Kettle Joe. I continue to be impressed with this little grill. It's turning out some amazing results. I mean, check this out. Great looking color. I think it's probably a little too dark for that smoke ring to come through. Hopefully you can see it on the inside shot when we were slicing, but they were perfect. Just enough to hold up with the tongs. They weren't falling apart or breaking, but I suspect this is the perfect level of doneness. Anyways, enough suspicions and guessing. Let's go ahead and confirm these series by digging in to our St. Louis rib. Go ahead and give this a bite. So that is exactly how we like them. We like them with just a little bit of a bite. If you would want them fall apart to the point where you can't pick them up and they just would crumble, go ahead and add an extra 30 minutes in foil if that's your family's favorite. But for us, we like that bite through doneness, and these are on the money. Now, speaking of on the money, our flavor profile is really coming together nice. I'm getting, first of all, that smoke is perfect. I'm getting then the sweetness of the sauce, and then the jalapeno is just giving a little bit of kick at the end on the tongue, which for me is the perfect rib. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed today's cook. If you did, please let YouTube know by smashing that thumbs up button, and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. I'll go ahead, I've just started also creating a playlist for the Kamado Joe Kettle Joe, and I'll put a link down to that below as well. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed hanging out today. Until next time, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, signing off. And remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.